And now, a word from...
Hello and welcome to the Last Looks podcast, a show where we catch up with talented hairstylists and makeup artists in the film and television industry. We'll pick their super creative brains and find out all the good stuff. Join me, your host, Jamie Lee, in finding out what's what in the hair and makeup departments around the world.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Calling all hairstylists and makeup artists. Would you like to have a strong wig knowledge? A solid foundation to build your wig styling skills on? Would you like to gain the respect of your cast, colleagues, and employers when it comes to wig work? And feel more confident in knowing how to handle, style, and apply wigs? Well, do we have a treat for you? Introducing Last Looks Workshops. Come down to Beverly Hills and join Jamie Lee and Rob Pickens in the Last Looks Workshops experience. Spaces are limited, so be sure not to dilly-dally. For more details, visit lastlooksworkshops.com.
And now, our feature presentation.
Today on the Last Looks podcast, I catch up with Master Barber Sincere Gilles. Sincere has a wonderful story to share on how he got his start in the TV and film industry, the wonderful opportunities that have presented themselves along the way, and how his eye for detail and his dedication to his craft have seen him succeed in his field. When listening to Sincere speak, his voice will lull you into a mode of positive relaxation. If only we all sounded as cool and calm as Sincere. Enjoy.
Pictures up, last looks, rolling, and action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast, Sincere.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Now finish this sentence for me, okay?
Sure.
Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Sincere, and when he grew up, he wanted to be...
Animator.
You did? You wanted to be an animator?
Yeah.
That's cool.
When I was young. Yeah. When I was young, I was intrigued with cartoons, especially Disney cartoons. I think when I was in school and I was able to write my name and do certain things, I was able to draw as well. So my favorite person to draw was Superman. And so obviously, because he had an S on his chest, first letter of my name is an S. So, you know.
Of course, goes
so
hand in hand.
Right, you know. And definitely started drawing, and people will tell you now that knew me from back then that they thought that I would be, an artist, that I would have the profession of an artist. Technically, I am an artist now still, but just not that of an animator.
That's cool. So I love also that kind of, I don't know, that childhood dream of wanting to create something that you love, because you obviously loved watching animated things, and then you had the thought of thinking, hey, maybe I could do that.
Right.
So that's really exciting. I also wonder if animators now, or grown up mature animators, still watch a lot of cartoons and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I still do. I'm still a little bit intrigued with animation. As a matter of fact, I saw something on Netflix that was an animated film or series, and I can't remember the name of it for the life of me right now, but it was a great animated series on Netflix, and I enjoyed it very, very much. And even now, to this day, I'll go back and watch, things that came out in television a long, long time ago, you know what I mean? And some of my favorite were anime cartoons.
Yeah, I mean, it takes you back to your happy place, right? Like, it's good times.
Oh, yeah, definitely. and sometimes it also allows you to get some creative juices flowing, because you may see something in that will enlighten you to be like, oh, maybe I should try this. So it's always good to go back.
That's cool. I always feel when an adult tells me that they don't like animated things or cartoons that their inner child has died. And I feel quite sorry for them. I feel quite bad for them. I'm like, how do you not like cartoons?
It's like I mean I get it. I see both sides. I see your side, but I
Yeah.
see their side as well because it's one of those things where like in this cruel world that we live in, you have to grow up very 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 quickly, and a lot of things that you may have wanted to do or take part in doing that will continue to give you some sort of childhood memory or resilience in a sense
Yeah.
will allow you have to like shut it down and become an
Leave it
adult
behind.
to
Yeah.
yeah in order to survive in this world.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
So, how do we move? At what point do we decide that animation isn't going to be the journey for you?
first year of college.
Yeah.
Yeah, first year of college.
So, you left high school, went into college. What were you thinking that you were going to do in college?
My first major in college was graphic design, and then
Okay.
because of the way the world was shifting heavy into computers, I changed my major from graphic design to computer graphics. But again, being in that time and everyone is learning, I'm even thinking the teachers at that time were just learning about computer graphics and what it entails, that there wasn't really a curriculum set for them to teach the students. So it seemed like everyone was like learning on the fly, so to speak, at that time.
Yeah, just trying
And
to catch up, right? Because everything's moving
right,
so quickly.
right. And so it allowed me to real quickly lose focus on being attracted to that world and pursuing that world. And so and then it didn't help that financial aid and things of that nature wasn't available to me at a certain point. I had to now become an independent, couldn't rely on my mother
Yeah.
to file for me to become, to get finance to go to college. So I had to think quick on my feet and figure out what I needed to do and how I was going to survive in this world and make money in order to pay for a roof over my head and so forth. And barbering seemed like the thing at the time. Started learning how to cut hair before I left high school. So I may have been like 18 when I started to adapt myself to learn how to cut hair. And then eventually I went into a barber shop and asked one of the barbers to teach me. And so I became an apprentice under a barber and then was able to get my master license under the apprenticeship for a barber. And then moving fast forward, I was able to go through the necessary means of getting my cosmetology license as far as school is concerned.
So where did all of this happen? Where did you go to college, and where's this barbershop that you walked into?
So originally I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. And there was a barber shop that was like not too far. I would say like 4 blocks away from me, walking distance away from me. And so I walked in after, let's just say, a year or so of cutting a bunch of my friends in the neighborhood's hair
Yeah.
for like $5 at the time. When haircuts were like $10, I was charging $5 just to get people to come to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And so just practicing and honing in on my skills as a barber from that perspective. And when I thought, or I was told, I should say, from my peers that I was good enough and that I should be in a barbershop, I walked into the barbershop and, auditioned to see if I can, get into work in the barbershop. And I'll never forget, I walked in there with my clippers, hand-me-down clippers, obviously. And the barber looked and said, yeah, it's nice, but you're missing something. And I think I gave somebody a skin fade, but at the bottom of the fade, you can still see where I started the fade at the line. And so he was basically telling me that I needed to clean that up. And at that moment, I didn't know how to clean it up. I didn't know how to. Like I literally like adjusted the clippers to a zero gap as much as I could to do it. And it still wasn't doing anything. And so he basically told me, these are the tools that you need, and this is how you do it. And he showed me, and I did the rest, and it was just like, wow, it's so easy. Why can I think of that? It just intrigued me that there's still more to learn as far as barbering is concerned. And he told me the tools that I needed. And I said, cool, I'll be back. He's like, once you get these tools, then you can work in the shop. at this point, I'm like, okay, $5 a haircut is not going to get me $400 worth of clippers that I need to use. So
Yeah.
how am I going to do this? And luckily, a good friend of mine invested in me, I should say, at an early age. He invested in me. And mind you, at this time, I'm like 19 years old.
Yeah.
Already have gone to college and so forth, but still trying to figure it out. And he invested in me and was just like, I'll loan you this $400 and you just pay me back whenever you get that $400 back. And there was no set deadline. He didn't want it a year from now or 2 years from now or weeks from now. He just wanted it when I was in a position capable of giving it to him.
Yeah.
And eventually at some point I was able to pay him back with interest
That's
because
awesome.
I was happy that he believed in me.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's a lot of money up front before you're even in the barbershop making the money, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, barbers, some serious tools you've got going on.
Yeah, you got some too. But I mean, hairstylists too. I think you guys carry a carry-on suitcase for all the
Oh,
supplies that you
dude.
may have, or you may even have to have a large suitcase for all the supplies that you need. So yeah.
So how long's that kind of apprenticeship program take? Like how long were you learning?
It actually takes like 2 years. Yeah, it takes 2 years. I think mine was longer, not because I wasn't ready, but because I was basically waiting on the master barber to be in a position to allow me to go and take the test for me to get my master barber license.
And then so what made you move on to getting your cosmetology license as well? Like what gave you that idea to keep going in that direction?
To be completely honest with you, I guess in the early stages of me working in TV and film, realized that in order for me to be in a union, I needed
Yeah.
to have a cosmetology license. They weren't allowing barbers to go into the union with just a master barber license. No matter how much I tried, it just was not budging. They weren't budging at all.
Rules are
So
rules. Yeah. So working in the barbershop, I guess then my questioning goes back even further to what transitions you into TV and film world.
there was a point in my barbershop career where I had actually stopped working in a barbershop and kind of transitioned into doing something else to get more business orientated, I should say, oriented. I left the barbershop maybe around 2004. And from 2004 till 2007, I was partners with two colleagues of mine, close friends of mine who I consider brothers. They decided to open up a kiosk inside of a mall in Brooklyn. We were customizing cell phones at that time. So whatever design you wanted to be put on your cell phone, we would be able to accommodate that for you. And we would also be in a position to put ringtones in people's phones because at that point in time, people were heavy into whenever their phone rings, they wanted a specific song or a specific saying coming out their phone instead of the phone doing an original ringtone. So
Yeah, I remember that. It was just like, no, I don't want the one that's already in the phone. I want something different.
right, exactly. So I did that for a couple of years, and that gave me a sense of business acumen on, how to do payroll, how to manage employees and things of that nature for a certain amount of time. And then the mall that we were working in was about to shut down, so we had to figure out what we were going to do. So we basically parted ways, and everyone went on their own way to pursue their line of business that they wanted to pursue. And for me, I just decided to go back into the working market, and I started working for Apple. And I started working for Apple, the company, from 2007 to 2009. And in that time span, I guess in 2008, I still had that bug of wanting to cut hair and wanting to make people look good, but I just didn't know in what capacity I wanted to do it at. And it just hit me and said that, listen, if, I'm a person that at that point in time was thinking about leaving behind a legacy and leaving a mark in this world and just being present and just standing out, making your work stand for something,
Nice.
if anything. And it just came to me that maybe I can do that within the entertainment industry. And so I created in 2008, I created my company, Directors Cut Inc., for that specific reason, to be a company that grooms talent in the industry.
That's awesome. So how did you go about getting your first clients and things?
I put my foot to the street.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, there's this thing with 6 degrees of separation where there's someone in your network that knows or has access to something that you may need in order to move forward in your life or become successful to a certain extent. And with that in mind, I basically reached out to people that I've met, whether it's working at Apple or even me having the business at the kiosk, who it is that I've worked with or met. And surely enough, a good friend of mine who is in mortgage and real estate was telling me about, hey, Super Bowl is actually happening in Miami this year. Why don't you come with me and we can start networking that way? So I went to Miami, started networking, put the foot to the ground and just started networking that way. When I came back from Miami, had a couple of numbers, reached out to a couple of people, but nothing that I could say that would get me to where I am or where I wanted to be, I should say.
Yeah.
But there is one person that stuck out and that that I knew or met when I was working at the kiosk. And he was the fashion editor at the time, fashion editor for Double XL magazine, an urban magazine in New York. I reached out to him because we basically customized a lot of their phones and products that they brought to us. And they actually had our company inside of their magazine as a support for people to know who we are and where to go to and stuff like that. So it worked out. So I reached out to him.
You're like, he's got to know someone.
He's got to know somebody. And I was just like, hey, I want to set up a meeting with you. Can I sit down with you and let's just talk? And he said, sure. So met with him in his office and we spoke and I told him what it is that I was doing, that I was trying to do, and if there's any way that he can help me, and if not help me, just point me in the direction of somebody that can.
Yeah.
And he basically said, no problem, let me think about it and see what I can gather, and I'll reach back to you as soon as I can. And lo and behold, let's just say I may have met him in March. By April, he reached back to me and said, I'm doing a shoot for my magazine as usual, and I'm actually looking for a barber to groom one of the models for the shoot that I'm doing. So are you available?
Nice.
Work? And I said, sure.
Yeah.
And that kind of set it off to where at that one shoot, he saw how professional I was and everything. Because at this point, I think my claim to being acknowledged was just how I presented myself. I went to work always with a suit and tie. Mm-hmm. And a suitcase that had clippers in it, so everyone was just like, what's going on? Who is this dude? And then to see me in a suit and then see me take my blazer off and cut hair, and they're like, he's cutting hair with a tie on and a shirt and shoes and slacks. Like, this is crazy. But I like it. And so that's what basically started the relationship as far as me being called back to work on some more sets with him. And one particular set that I worked with him on, he had the actor Michael K. Williams at the shoot. I groomed Michael for the first time on that shoot. And after that shoot, Michael called me maybe a month or two later and said, hey, we're starting back season 2 of Boardwalk Empire. Would you be available to come and groom me for that? Just me personally. And,
that's awesome. I love that show and love Michael K. Williams. Like, yeah. Such a good character in that show. My goodness.
Yeah, he was great at it. He was great at what he do, a legend in his game. And I was just blessed to be offered an opportunity to work with him.
So where did that shoot?
We shot that show in New York, several locations. Sometimes we would shoot in Staten Island. Sometimes we would shoot in Brooklyn at Steiner Studios.
Nice.
So majority of the time we would shoot at Steiner Studios in Brooklyn.
So that's your first experience of like being on set kind of full-time-ish?
Full time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what a show to start with. My goodness, far out.
I know. Like usually they were basically giving Michael pushback at some point where they were saying, we can have him come and cut you and then he would have to leave. So the days that you need a cut, he would leave. I mean, he would come and cut you and then leave. But Michael fought hard for me to be that person that not only came to cut him, but stay on set and go through the motions and go through what it entails to be on set and how to look after an actor when you're on set to make sure your continuity is there and everything is in accordance to to getting them camera ready.
That's cool. So who kind of explained all of that to you?
Michael did, and the department head at the time for Boardwalk Empire, Francesca Paris, showed me little things here and there as well. And there's a couple of people from Boardwalk that helped me out, from Francesca to her daughter Michelle, to there was another woman that helped me out. To this day, we haven't been in contact for a while, but if I reach out to her, she'll know who I am and everything. Her name is Therese Doucet.
I like that it's that you had some people taking you under their wing and kind of showing you the way. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And so I guess it just kind of grows from there, right?
Yeah, it grew from there in the sense of, at this point now, anything that Michael K. Williams was doing, and he was in a position to have me on board as his personal hairstylist, that's where I was. So I worked with him on Boardwalk Empire. I worked with him on The Night Of. I worked with him on Hap and Leonard, a bunch of different shows. And the last show that I worked with him on before he passed was Lovecraft Country.
Dude, that show was so fucking good, and I cannot for the life of me, I mean, you might know more, but why did that not continue? I could have could have eaten another season of that for breakfast. Like, it was so much fun to watch. My husband and I, we loved it. Loved it.
I'm sure.
So good. That must have been fun to work on, huh?
It's actually like one of my favorite shows that I've worked on. Like one of the shows that stands out. Like Boardwalk is definitely one of them, but Lovecraft Country is a standout show for me to have worked on, for sure. I met a lot of people on that show. I'm currently working with one of the actors from the show as his personal hairstylist, Jonathan Major.
He's just going from strength to strength, that dude too. That he's doing some awesome work. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
So on Lovecraft Country, were you just looking after Michael, or were you doing other people as well on that?
No, I was doing other people as well on there. Michael wanted me to come on as a personal hairstylist, but then when he thought about it, he felt that I would probably learn way more helping out the hair department as opposed to being a personal hairstylist for him.
Oh, dude, it's so nice to hear that he had the best interests in mind. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. And so I jumped on board with Lovecraft as the third hairstylist.
That's awesome.
So there was a head, there was the key, and I was the third hairstylist. And it was great. It was great to work on. It was a great experience. I looked after Michael. I looked after Jonathan. I looked after Courtney B. Vance. And I looked after a couple of actors that came in, sporadically through the season.
That's so cool. So was that your first time not being purely a personal? Was that your first gig kind of like being part of the full team?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's so, you do everything so backwards.
I know, right?
I love it.
I know, right?
I mean, there's no set way of doing things, of course. Like, everyone has their own journey and how they get into these things, but it's quite amazing how many projects you kind of worked on as a personal to then be like, okay, now I'm the third in the hair team. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty. It makes me feel like different too. Like you said, that my journey was completely different than anyone else's, and that's just what it is, right? But to know that majority of the people in the industry are a part of a hair department first before seeing any personal work, and more than likely can jump back and forth depending on who they're doing or on who they're personal for. And for me to have been a personal for all these years and then have a moment where I'm a part of a hair department and then back to being a personal.
Are there pros and cons to both of those situations? I'm sure there are.
There probably are, but I To be honest, I just look at things in such of a positive manner and just look at things as a blessing that,
It's all good.
yeah, it's just really all good for me. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, one would say that if you're personal, you may feel, depending on the show that you're working on or who you're working with, you may feel slightly as an outsider because your role is just to take care of one specific person. And so a lot of the things that happen within a department may not be expressed with you or discussed with you to a certain extent. They just really just want to know, what are you going to do with the person that you're in charge of? And that's it. And then there's been other times where that hasn't been the case, but for me, ultimately, there's just pros in being a personal because, you're able to interact and get one-on-one with that person. And me being a barber is something that I'm accustomed to. Just, even though the barbershop is a revolving door for clients, it's just still when that client is in your chair, you're
Yeah.
dealing with one person at a time. And your whole focus is to make that one person look a certain type of way. And so being a personal is kind of like right up my alley, kind of from that perspective. But then it's a great feeling also working in the department because you feel a part of the team and it's a collective effort. It's teamwork. And me getting that experience, I've been more so been proactive in creating more of a teamwork, regardless if I'm a personal or not. I am involved in everything with the hair department and the makeup department, just so that I'm aware of anyone that may need help or how can I be of service or help to them, but also how can I make sure that I'm on top of my game when it comes to grooming my personal actor for certain scenes, because certain things are happening. So I need to collaborate more with people in hair or just people in makeup for that matter to make sure that we're cohesive and making the actor's appearance look presentable for the show or the movie.
Yeah. I think it's definitely it's incredibly important. It always confuses me when that collaboration kind of isn't there because they all work together. It's a whole look.
Yeah,
So the
hand in
more you
hand.
can communicate and collaborate
Yeah,
with each other, and it's at the end of the day, all you want is the best thing for the job. Like, I just want this to look how everybody wants it to
exactly.
look, and I want everyone to be happy.
Right.
It's just like whoever
Exactly.
you got to work with and
Exactly.
however you got to do it to make it happen. It's just like, yeah, let's do it.
Let's just do it. Let's just get our hands dirty and let's just do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, coming up through these jobs in the barbershop and all these experiences that you've had, have you had one piece of advice that has really stuck with you?
Yeah, I think like Michael K. Williams told me something early on working on Boardwalk Empire with him, and he basically said, this is one thing that always stuck with me, I think, because I was literally a virgin to the film industry. And when I came on, I basically groomed him and cut him. I still had the barbershop mentality of like, I cut your hair and then I'm going to be here, but I'm going to be here to just watch and observe and see what's going on. And I'll never forget, like, they said last looks. And I was just looking around like, oh, what's going on, And so he came up to me and he said, listen, when they say last looks, that means that you come and you make sure that I look camera ready at all times. Even if there is nothing that needs to be done, obviously, like just make sure that you're present and letting everyone know that you're here and that this actor is being taken care of. That actually went a long way with me to the point where I'm a hawk on set. When I'm on set, my eyes and my attention is so sharp that I go and do last looks before last looks is even called.
I mean, there are those times where you're working with
Yeah.
an AD who doesn't even like to call last looks, so you gotta be paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
I love how he schooled you on last looks.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about some favorites, and Boardwalk Empire, obviously, I mean, it's your first job. Incredible project. It's period piece. You must have just been on those sets going, what? This is amazing. So I'm just answering your question for you, but that's probably why it was a favorite, right?
Oh yeah, no, the whole experience. I mean, and then at the time, like I said, I would always go on set wearing I would go to work wearing a suit and tie.
Right.
And so there were times where people on set, PAs on set, used to think that I was an extra for the show.
Aha.
And I'm like, no, I'm here to groom Michael K. And they're like, oh. And this only happened for like the first 2 seasons that I was there. And then I started on set season 2, and the show ended on season 5. So by the time season 4, the end of season 3 and season 4 and 5 came along, everyone knew by now that, okay, Sincere is the person that comes in with a suit and tie on.
Yeah. He's not background.
So he's not background. He's not an extra. Like, just so it was that.
It's awesome. And you said Lovecraft Country was a favorite. Do you have any other fave projects that you've worked on?
Yeah, The Harder They Fall was a good project that I worked on. Loved working on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool film. It's a fun watch. Where were you guys shooting that? Is that in New Mexico?
New Mexico,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
We shot that in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it was cool.
Nice. How'd you like being on location?
It was great. It was great being on location. It was some difficult times, but we persevered through it because it was the height of the pandemic, so shooting under those circumstances could definitely be hard. And we were dealing with a resilient crew, cast and crew there, and we made it through, and which is probably why that project will be something that is held dear because of what we accomplished in those times.
I think so. And it's not something you always necessarily see on screen. It's your experience, isn't it, of what
exactly
what you kind of go through as a team and as a crew to get that job done.
Right, exactly.
And I love just hearing about your professional attire and what you wear to work. So I would love to know a little bit more about some professional ethics that really resonate strongly with you.
But I will say that I no longer wear suit and ties for set, because being on location, that dry cleaning bill may, be more than what you get paid for in a day.
Yeah, I was going to say when you said that, I was just saying, I wonder if he's still wearing a suit and tie, because some locations and sets that you go to, it's just like, oh, dude, that could almost be dangerous wearing those types of shoes.
Exactly.
So, but I feel like because that is where you've come from, that you're still probably very well dressed.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. I've been told that too. Like, even with me dressing however it is that I need to dress for what I consider to be called a uniform for me. I dress in my uniform when I go to work. There's still people that be like, look at Sincere, you look good. Like and I'm like, well, if you think I look good now, I hope to hear this from you on the 36th day of work or some sort of 24th day of work, when I'm still wearing the same thing over and over again, because I'm not changing. So, but as far as like professional ethics that I look for when being at work, or I admire, is being on time is one. Respecting the art is another. Like when you're on set, you respect when the actors are creating this art. You respect when the crew is creating the art. There's just a certain level of respect there that goes into that I like to see. Being able to give and receive fearless feedback from colleagues and peers, without feeling any kind of way about it, without taking it personal. This is just something that needs to be said or is told to you, or, given or received for the betterment of you and your career, whichever way it leads you, right?
Yeah. I think that can kind of go in the way also of, I feel like I wish they could handle receiving and giving compliment more often as well, because I know that that's something I need to work on, is giving more compliments when you're just head down, busy, and you just really, especially as a head of a department, I just really need to stop and just be like, that is amazing. What you've done right there is amazing, because it just, I don't know, it just helps that support system, right?
Even just telling somebody, good work today, good job today. Like, today when they say that's a wrap, see you guys tomorrow. That's, it's good to hear good day today, good job today. You were there, you were present, or just saying good job today could possibly give somebody a boost or some sort of relief to say, okay, I can come back tomorrow and do this all over again and not feel away or not question.
Yeah. You don't know what kind of day they could have had. They could have had the most shit
Exactly.
day ever. And the last thing that they hear in that day is good day. And then they're like,
Right.
oh, okay.
Exactly. Right.
It was worth it.
Exactly. Exactly. And I guess the last thing is just confidentiality,
Take it seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it definitely in our line of work is, well, it's just respect, isn't it? Again.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you feel helps you stand out in your profession?
What makes me stand out, I guess, is my attention to detail and how alert I can be when I'm on set. Like I mentioned before, sometimes I'm doing last looks before the ADs are saying last looks. And sometimes I know what the next setup is going to be before any PA is able to come to me and tell me what the next setup is going to be. And there's no disrespect to what they're doing or anything of that nature. I think that most of the PAs that I've worked with have been doing an awesome job with, relaying messages and just communicating, and they've always come and say, hey, so our next setup is this. And I never take the liberty to say, yeah, I know already. No, I actually listen to them and say, copy that and keep it going. But for the most part, I'm so in tune with the set from the time that they yell action to the time that they yell cut. What separates me is just the simple fact that I'm on set with a monitor, on my phone because they're allowing, you to have Q take so that you can look at stuff from the monitor from your phone instead of crowding the director's monitor.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, looking at the monitor and having a can, which is, headphones and a piece of block that you turn on that allows you to hear the actors do their dialogue and do their stuff. I'm so in tune and aware of the scene and everything of that nature that if I do need to step in, I'll step in. If I don't, I don't. I'm just in awareness and I hear what's going on the set all around, from whether it's the grips doing something to the camera department doing something. Like, I'm just aware. And I think that that's what's separating.
Yeah. It's switched on and switched on, paying attention. Yeah. It makes a difference because, I do know some people just, go off to their chair and sit there playing on their phone until a PA comes to tell them what's happening next. So I think it's good to definitely keep one ear to the ground and know what's going on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got no one else to blame but yourself if you miss something.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the attention to detail, I think, goes a long way in this industry. People notice when you have that skill. It's very cool.
Yeah.
And because you haven't done a huge amount of work, only because when was Boardwalk Empire? When did you start that? Like 2011?
Yes.
Maybe? Yeah. So what have you not worked on that you would like to? Like, what kind of project?
Honestly, I guess the future projects that I think that I will be working on, I guess, like those are the only things that I kind of look forward to where I'm like, okay, this is a project that, I haven't worked on before, but at some point I am going to work on it. And so it's just to go ahead and go work on it, Yeah, I never really try to indulge in to say, you know what, there's a project that's out that I wish I could have worked on or that I should have worked on. I kind of just take my blessings as they come and just say whatever it is that I've worked on or that I am working on, that's what I was supposed, that's what I was here to do. That's what I was here to do.
Yeah. I guess it's more of I don't know whether there's genres or something that, because some people would be like, I've never worked on a sci-fi or a fantasy or a this or a that. So they kind of think one day that'd be cool, but they certainly don't have anything specific in mind. Like, I wish I'd done Star Wars, that movie or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've worked I could be wrong, but I kind of feel like I've worked in every genre, kind of. I mean, I've done drama, which obviously was Boardwalk and The Night Of,
And it was period.
and it was
So,
period, right?
yeah,
I've worked on, I guess you can say, sci-fi and fantasy, which was like, and drama, which was like Lovecraft Country. You know, it
absolutely.
was drama, but it was sci-fi as well.
Yeah, very true.
I've worked on comedy to a certain extent with Hack and Leonard,
And you've done a Western.
and I've done a Western, you know, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, okay.
So again, yeah, this without me even really thinking about it, I felt like I've tackled every genre without me saying that this is what I would like to tackle, you know.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. And what do you find most rewarding about what you do?
Finishing the project,
Yeah.
you know, finishing the project and knowing that my peers acknowledge me and the work that I've done to the point to where they feel that I am worthy enough to be on, you know, a podcast like yours, you know, or to be on a panel discussing what it is that I do and where I come from. So that's rewarding for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what do you find most challenging?
The most challenging about what it is that I do, I guess, being away from family for a long period of time, like traveling
Yeah.
and being away from family. We're away working on projects as minimum as
Mm-hmm.
2 months, 3 months, and as long as 6 to 7 months, maybe
Yeah.
even 10 months sometimes. And for example, my mother or my sister, you know,
Mm.
for that long period of time, it kind of, you know, it's kind of like, oh man, can't wait till I'm done so that I can go and visit and say hi and be present with the family and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's difficult. How do you do the balance with the work life dance? Because I mean, it's not. I mean, working in the barber shop, of course, there's the work life balance, but you're going into that one place of work. Your hours are pretty standard. You know what time you have off. You know you're not far away from home. But the film industry is like a whole different monster with the hours that you do, whether you're working locally or on location away somewhere. So how do you find that balance for work and life?
well, I mean, recently I've just brought family to work.
Yeah.
Not literally, but you know, in the sense of if I'm traveling, my family travels with me.
Yeah.
So I have a 2-year-old
Mm.
son and I have a wife. And so instead of me being away from them from time, you know, if I've come to the point where it's just like, well, if I'm going here, you guys are coming with me. So I may not see you while I'm at work, but when I'm done work and I come home, I'll see you and I'll spend time with you. And, you know, you'll give me that sort of boost or resurgence that I need in order to keep continuing and then keep going.
Yeah. And I mean, they get to explore new different places while you're at work, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
I think that's great, especially while your little one is so little, kind of easier to move around a bit more, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm always curious as to whether someone thinks of themselves more of an introvert or an extrovert.
Originally, I would
Mm-hmm.
say I'm an introvert because that's just, you know, I'm a Virgo, so very reserved. I observe more
Mm-hmm.
than anything, you know, and so I'm considered an introvert. But what this industry has, I won't say forced me to be, but has like made me aware that I need to be at some point
Mm.
in time occasionally is an extrovert because I have to be approachable. I have to be able to approach people. And so being an introvert may not get me heard or seen in this industry. And so me learning that at an early age of
Mm.
being in the industry, it's taught me a lot of me being able to speak, me being able to approach people and be approachable, you know, instead of going someplace and kind of waiting for someone to acknowledge me. If I acknowledge you, I acknowledge you and I'll let you know that I've acknowledged you. And, you know, if I'm walking in on set, I try to say hi to everyone that I see on set. I may not remember your name by the first time you mentioned it to me, but as we keep going along in this journey of working on this, whether it's a film or a TV series or whatever have you, I will know your name. You will know my name. We will know what it is that we do. and there's going to be a certain type of respect that's going to be there. And when we leave each other, there'll definitely be a great deal of respect for one another, what we do, because we've now finished something that we've put our heart and soul into. So
That's awesome. I really feel some of what you're saying. I'm also a Virgo. Also, naturally think of myself as an introvert, which people who listen to this podcast probably are like, what? No. Um,
same
yeah,
here, same here, because people will see me and would not think that I'm an introvert, but
yeah,
I am. They'll be like, yeah, he's quiet, but
yeah. And I'm that type of person that when I'm around people that I know, love, and trust, I think the extrovert is like fully there.
oh, for sure.
But yeah, walking onto a set for the first time with a whole bunch of crew that I don't know, oh yeah, I'm quiet. I'm just sneaking in and out. So it's kind of good to hear you say that you try to kind of get to know everybody, because I feel like a lot of the times I would rather nobody even know who I am. I just want to go and do my job and then leave again.
Oh, trust me, same here. I just want to go in, do what I
Yeah.
need to do, stay focused, and then
And
leave.
sneak out at the end of the day.
Yeah, because it has its pros and it has its cons with that as well. Sometimes somebody may not know that you're just being cordial and just want to make sure that you know everybody and just be aware of your surroundings and what's going on. That's usually me, and they may not know that, and so they may pick the wrong time to come to me after I've greeted them or had a small conversation with them, that they may feel comfortable to come back and want to hold a conversation with me at the wrong time. And I'm like, hey, I'm locked in right now. So anything that you say to me at this point, once they say action or whatever, or once my actor is on set, like I can't indulge in none of that. I literally have to be on 10 to make sure that everything is going according
Yeah.
to the way it's supposed to. Maybe on break, on lunch, or as the cameras are being set up, we may definitely have some time to have a brief conversation. But when it's go time, it's go time.
Yeah, fair enough. I think too that sometimes, maybe not as much now, I don't know. I know I used to get it when I was younger, but people would think that I was being rude, but I was just being shy.
Mm,
And when you walk in, those first times of being on a massive set, I just wanted to get inside my turtle shell and disappear. But yeah, over time and over the years, you learn that you do need to stand strong and be like, yes, I'm this person and this is the department I'm in and this is my job and I need to do my job. Get out of my way. It's going to happen. Thank you very
right,
much.
right. Hmm.
So yeah, and then
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, doing this podcast, and I'm grateful for you coming on the podcast, feeling that you're more of an introvert as well. It's awesome. We can be introverts together on a podcast.
For sure, for sure. Listen,
Yeah.
fellow Virgo, so it's all great, man. It's all great.
It's where that attention to detail comes from, my friend.
Exactly. Because we're perfectionists at heart, right? We're just solely perfectionists at heart.
It's awesome. And I would love to know how you define success in your work.
Yeah, I define success as definitely me finishing a project that I've worked on.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I'm going through it from the day that we start, and I'm not taking my foot off the pedal until we're done, until they say that is a picture wrap. And it's at that point that everything, I kind of like let everything, the guards down, everything is gone, and I'm happy, and I'm pleased with the effort and the work that I've done
Yeah.
to get to this point. And so that's where the success happens for me.
That's awesome. Just being able to see that through from start to finish. That's cool. Hey, I wanted
Right.
to just ask too. So, when you're doing your personal work and you are doing that on set, are you doing that type of work with your clients off set as well? So, for if they have appearances somewhere or they have red carpet stuff to do, are you also going and being involved in that type of thing as well?
Yes.
It's a nice kind of variety, spice of life, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you just get exposed to
Yeah.
everything that whoever your client is at the time, like whatever it is that they're going through, that's what you're going through as well.
I think that's nice to have that. There's that variety to kind of
Yeah.
break up the work. That's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a blessing. I always look at it as a blessing. Like I'm blessed to be in this position and to have this opportunity to every day is a lesson. So I'm learning as as every day happens, as new things happen. So it's great.
Yeah. And what is something that you've learned recently? What's something new?
It's crazy. I was just trying to figure what that is actually. And I don't know if like I haven't learned anything new. I know I've learned anything new, but something interesting that I've learned. I would say, I mean, this is something that just everybody should know and has to know.
Yeah.
I think the more and more that I do it, the more I realize how important it is
Right.
that it needs to be done, which is like just taking the time out to prep and do research on what it is that you're doing, to be all in and not be lazy. You know what I mean? Like you feel like you that person that could be at the drop that something happens or come. You're supposed to work on the fly if something changes on the fly, but not when something is, given to you at X amount of days or months prior. You're supposed to have everything together and worked out. So
Yeah. When something's literally written in black and white on a paper script,
yeah,
you should be prepared for
yeah.
it.
But I've learned on the fly. What I did learn is that you can prep and you can have meetings, prep meetings and stuff like that about what is supposed to happen, what you envision to happen. But sometimes on the day that can change real quick and you need to be able to adjust. Or it can work out great, but it's just you just have to adjust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But those plans can go out the window and you've got to come up with something completely different. And that's I don't know, it's fun. It's a challenge, right?
Yeah, that's what keeps it interesting, keeps everything interesting, keeps you engaged. It'll never be a dull life on set ever.
Let's hope not. Now, I want you to visualize that you're at your station, you've got everything you need for the day, you're set up, you are prepared, you're ready to go. And if I walked in and I took one tool or product away from you, what would freak you out? What would you be like, no, Jamie Lee, you cannot take that?
Honest answer would be my hands.
Okay. I don't think I would be able to take your hands, but
Right. And I'll give you an example, right? Because cause my hands is like, if you take my hands, then there's nothing that I can do. Like I'm shit out of luck.
I know. Whenever someone says, would you rather lose a leg or an arm? I'm like, a leg. Take it now. I'm like, the hands are the precious things, man. They do the job.
Yeah. And if it's a tool, if you were to take a tool from my station, I would freak out. Just try to figure out a way to either get that tool or to get another tool like it to do what I needed to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I would always try to figure out a way. I'll give you a good story. When I used to work at the shop, there was a point in Brooklyn at some point when I was at the shop, I was working in Park Slope. There was a point where I was cutting a client's hair and did like one side of their head was already done. And now I needed to do the left side of their head, which is like finish tapering the back of their head and the side of their head and then shape them up.
Yeah.
That's all I needed to do. I cut their hair down already. I started the tapering as far as like balding the sides the way I needed to and etc. And all I needed to do was just now fade it and line and shape the person up. And in the middle of me getting ready to do the left side, New York City has a blackout.
Oh, shit.
This is before cordless clippers were invented, so everything was corded.
Yeah.
And I couldn't use my clippers to finish the job. And so what I did was take a comb and take a razor and adjusted the razor with the comb in order for me to fade the taper on the back and the sides. And then I used the straight razor to actually shape the person's hairline up. And I was done and that was it. So I saved myself from not looking like a person that can't adjust And I also saved the client from having to walk out of the shop, even though he had a valid excuse that there's a blackout.
But he wouldn't have wanted to walk out with a half-done haircut.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, nice work. I'm sure he was incredibly pleased that you could get the job done.
Yeah, he was. Like, I think I had a customer for life at that point.
Yeah, that's probably a story he tells. And who would you want to hear on the podcast?
I would want to hear from a good friend, colleague of mine that I worked with. Her name is Andrea Mona Bowman.
I do believe I have heard that name. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone calls her Mona. Her name is Andrea Bowman, but we call her Mona. Mona was the key on Lovecraft Country. That's the first time that I met her. And since then, she showed me a lot, and she's always been in my corner and in anything that I've done. Not to say that there hasn't been any other colleagues of mine that I've worked with that hasn't been in my corner, because they have been. And Mama Carol is definitely one of them. I worked with her on Hap and Leonard, so for sure. I think that it'd be great to hear Mona on your podcast, and the amount of experience and shows and things that she's done, and how she even came into this industry is a journey within itself that needs to be heard. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yay. Well, Sincere, I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you today. I appreciate your time so much, and I'm so happy that you shared. I love your journey. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and reaching out to me, even though I knew with my busy schedule, it was hard for me to reach back in such a timely fashion. So I apologize for that.
We did it though. We did it. We did it.
We made it happen.
We did. It's never easy, but I appreciate you taking the time. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
For links to see more about our guests, go to our Instagram at The Last Looks Podcast or our website, thelastlookspodcast.com. If you want to keep up with new episodes being released, be sure to subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, YouTube, or any podcast streaming platform. And remember, if you're enjoying the show, share it. The Last Looks Podcast would like to thank Brett Stanley and Sabrina Castro. The song Fun Time by DJ Quads. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
That's a wrap, people.